Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm with myself, Desrochers. Michelle Desrochers. I'm looking at Amelia's name right now. Anyway, off to a great start. Running a little bit behind, so I do apologize. Anyway, we are broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. A little bit of a reminder to pop on over to the United Public Radio Network YouTube channel. Subscribe, join us there in chat. So if you're looking to interact with myself and Preston, I will take all of your questions and comments in the chat room, which is on YouTube. I will make sure I pop over to Facebook really quick and make sure we're up and running. Anyway, I'm really excited tonight. I'm really looking forward. I've been looking forward to bringing Preston on for a while. I love UFO talks, and I know our listeners really do too. And he's really, really well versed. So I'm sure we're all going to have a real good time tonight. But before I get into reading you a little snippet of his bio, I want to give a big shout out to the folks over at Folgers Coffee who do partially sponsor tonight's segment. Thank you, Folgers. We love you. We appreciate you. So, Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that he, his family, and friends, co-workers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses, investigated a variety of paranormal phenomena, wide variety. He is a field investigator for the MUFON UFO Network. He's a ghost hunter, paranormal researcher, and the author of 26 books, no less, and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. And of course, most of his books, you can find them on Amazon. And of course, go to his website, which is www.prestondennett.weebly.com. And I was perusing that, and you can actually go in and get little snippets of his book, which would be like awesome. So it gives you some kind of an idea what each book is about. So really fascinating. And I'll make sure we get that posted on the site as well. So what I'm going to do right now is go in, okay, and do the live link. Wrong one. Okay, looks like I'm going to do this the hard way. Bear with me, people. Then you will have my undivided attention, I promise. Okay, so share, copy. Okay. One moment. Okay. I do apologize, guys, a little bit disheveled. I'm used to having Amelia do this for me, and I'm hoping that she's going to be back real soon. We miss her like stink. So here we are. It's on my personal page, and let me just go to the Outer Realm. I'm pretty sure she's probably already put it there. Okay, and mega feedback, guys. Sorry. Okay. Okay, apparently I'm thinking hopefully this is fixed. Sorry about that. Skype has been really strange. After our guest last night, very mysterious, but we ended up having a lot of weird stuff go on with Skype, literally within a few minutes of speaking with him and signing off. It was just crazy. So it has not been acting right ever since. So if it gets a bit weird, I do apologize. We're just going to hope that we can get Preston on quickly. I know Joe's working on it right now, and I'm going to go into chat and I'm going to go join you guys. And hello, Zachman. Hello, Bubbly. Okay, good. Awesome. Perfect. This is good. So, as we wait for Preston to come on, which I'm sure will be in a few minutes, very excited. Oh, there he is. Yay. Hello.
Hello. Let me get my video going there.
Perfect. Having a
Let's
little
see
bit
here.
of Skype issues. I really wasn't sure how this was going to actually happen. So,
Can you see
uh,
me?
I can. How are
All right.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I've been looking forward to your interview. You've got so much amazing literature, lots of books, lots of knowledge. Like, oh my God, that takes a lot of time. So, manage all that during lockdown?
It's definitely helped lockdown, ironically.
Oh,
It's been a little bit of a silver lining for me to not have to be at work all the time.
oh, I imagine it would. That's just insane. It's a great website, though. So, we're going to get that posted for you also. So, man, I've read the bio, so I could see how, I always say, let's get into humble beginnings. And I see, you're an abductee, contactee. This is what started everything for you?
For me personally, n- I didn't think I was involved at all, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
I
Just
thought,
everybody around you. How did you get so lucky to be unscathed?
right? Um, Turns out, I think I probably do have some level of contact. I mean, certainly now I've got evidence of it. But yeah, growing up, did not believe in UFOs. I was very skeptical. I hated the subject. I didn't want to hear it.
Oh.
And heard this report on the news in 1986
Mhm.
and started asking people I knew, what do you think of this pilot? He said he saw a UFO. Isn't he an idiot? And they're like, no, no, I saw one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
I didn't really mean he
And
was an idiot. Just kidding.
yeah.
Friend. Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. You did let me finish.
That's right. Thinking out loud. Sorry. So, wow. So
So
you
yeah,
started asking questions and realized that people around you were seeing them.
yeah, a lot. I mean, not just one. My brother, my older brother, my sister-in-laws, people at work, people I'd worked with for years and years. I
Hmm.
friends, uh, and this was not just your average sighting. I mean, some were described your simple sort of sighting, but some were describing seeing gray ETs or having missing time or being chased down the road and having missing time.
Chase down the road. My God, that would have been terrifying.
Yeah, that's what Dorothy told me at work. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Dorothy, because Diane was telling me her sighting, and Diane's like, oh, yeah, me and my whole family were watching this darting light, you know, darting around. It went on for an hour. I'm like, you're kidding. She's like, no, it definitely wasn't a plane. And in walks Dorothy. This is at the office. I work as back then it was data entry. Uh,
Right.
now I do bookkeeping, but Dorothy's like, oh, UFOs? Yeah, one followed me and my girlfriend and my mom home from the library. I'm like, what?
Where have I been? Like, this is a thing.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And
Jeez.
I dived in. I'm like, all right, aliens are invading Earth. Pretty clear. I
We're
mean, I kind of knew right from the beginning that this was a real phenomenon because the people I loved and trusted were telling me. But I couldn't
Mhm.
accept it. It's not that I didn't believe them. I just couldn't. I couldn't accept it.
Yeah,
It's
it's hard to get your head around, you
yeah.
know,
I
and
went
I
straight
think
to the
sometimes you block it out
yep, yep.
or they take it from you, one of
Both.
the two.
I'm sure it's
But
both. I
yeah,
suspect it's both, I should say.
yes, no, I
So
don't think you're wrong on that at all. So, I mean, if your brother saw one, did he experience any missing time or because usually, as the story goes, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you, it usually is like a family thing, right?
yeah, yeah, and it was kind of a slow dawning process on me that, hey, maybe it's in my family. Because I was thinking, okay, it's just it's sightings. Well, but there was someone who said they saw grays. And I'm like, ah. And
In in the
both my
family.
net, yeah, and both my nephews have had close-up sightings. Well, I shouldn't say both. I've got like 8 or 7 nephews. Lost count.
Both 7, 4, same. Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, it started to dawn on me, especially I started having sightings. I'm like, what's going on? And it took a few experiences before I realized that, oh yeah, I'm involved.
oh my gosh.
Just
Do you
yeah,
think you just happen to notice it more because you've been, talking to so many people about it and maybe it was happening before, but it's sort of one of those things that it's like if you don't acknowledge it, it's like being in a haunting, the house falling down and you've got, everybody in the house experiencing and you got your dad saying, no, the house is settling. You're all being
yeah,
ridiculous. It's like
yeah,
what? So
yeah. Denial is a strong
yeah,
phenomenon. And I
yeah,
looked.
yeah.
That was the first thing I did actually. I'm like, okay, well, at some point I examined my past. I scoured it, looking for missing time or
Hmm.
anything strange. And there were a few little things which are just not enough for me to say, oh my gosh, I was abducted as a kid.
Right, right.
Really, for me, it didn't start until I started investigating this. But I was a pretty young man. Let me see. 1986 is when I heard that UFO report. I was 21 years old. And just a couple of years later, I started having sightings. And the first real one that made me like go, oh, wow, was 1992. Could have been 93.
Hmm.
This is in Woodland Hills, California, outside of LA. It's a pretty dense suburb. And I was
Hmm.
visiting my brother who'd seen a UFO actually, and my sister-in-law who's had experiences.
Hmm.
Like, oh my God, UFOs are real. I was just talking with them all night long about this, just trying to deal with it. And they were very supportive and helping me through it. And I'm like, all right, it's getting late. I probably have to work tomorrow. Time to
Hmm.
go. And I lived, let's see, it's about 10 miles away, maybe 15 miles in Canoga Park. No, not 15 miles, 10. Uh,
Right. So
and
relatively close.
Yeah, real close. And so I'm headed down the road, down Tosca, and I'm going around this hairpin corner. You can only go 3 miles an hour. It's a hairpin corner.
Right.
And suddenly I look up and see a bird coming towards my car. This is late at night. And I instantly see, well, that's not a bird, is it? This is a ball of
Shoot.
light.
Yes.
And it drops from, I'm going to say about 200, 300 feet up on my right side and swoops down and comes right in front of my windshield and starts going back and forth. And I'm like,
Oh.
wow, my jaw drops. I'm tracking it. I'm like, this is not a reflection. This is a golf ball size ball of light,
Hmm.
soft, soft white, hard edges,
Hmm.
not big, maybe a little
Yeah.
bigger than a golf ball.
Like an orb size.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at it going, wow, 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 wow. And it stops and then it shoots forward, dips down, almost touches the road and goes straight up. And I track it right up through the canopy and the trees.
Hmm.
And that's the last thing I remember.
Oh no.
And not only that, I didn't talk about it. I didn't remember it
Hmm.
for a few months, maybe a year. I'm honestly not
Hmm.
sure. Just one day, I'm like, hey,
This was a thing.
I saw you. I saw a UFO because
Yeah.
I've seen them before and since. And usually afterwards, I'm like lying in bed. I'm like, wow, I saw it, and I'm writing it down. I'm going over and over it. I didn't do that in this case. So I'm now
Hmm.
wondering if I had missing time. I I don't remember going home. I should have turned around. That's what I would have done and gone to my brother and said, I just saw one. You're not gonna believe this.
We were just talking about this thing and this thing happened. And yeah, I think the fact that you didn't, after spending an entire evening, getting emotional and moral support and talking about it and all of a sudden it happens. But there's that theory too that when you start talking about it and you start acknowledging it, it's almost like, oh, look, finally he's ready. Did you sort
Yeah.
of have that feeling?
I looked into that too, and I did find out that that's true. If you start
Yeah,
researching this stuff, they come looking for you.
sure in hell do.
And
I'm
I'm
right
not
with you
sure,
there, brother.
right?
Yeah.
Because that was not the last time I've had stuff like that.
Right.
And it became at some point clear to me that they were listening in on my research for
How,
real.
How do they do that? How do they do that? Like,
Um, Either they have technology or they're psychically hooked up or there's implants, but they
mhm.
are on it. I was talking to this one lady. I'm like, "Do you want to go on TV?" She's had encounters. UFO landed in her backyard. Her husband, her child, they're all involved. There was
Wow,
a
wow.
big case here in
Mhm.
Southern California, San Fernando Valley. And she's like, "Sure." Her name was Susan. And she's like, "Yeah, I'll go." I'm like, "It's just a little public access. No big deal.
Mhm.
It's not Oprah, but."
Thank
And she's
God.
like, "Yeah, no problem, no problem." And she calls me up like 2 days before the show. It was pretty close to when the show. She's like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." I'm like, "Why?" And she says, "The ETs come. They know I was going to go on TV, and they don't want me to talk about them."
See,
And
that's weird because I've heard, the other way around that they really want to be, to be brought forward. Have you heard that theory?
yeah, I get both. Often when someone's in initial stages, they're like, "Don't talk. Don't tell anyone. You can't
Right.
talk about this. You won't remember." Um,
Mhm.
and at some point, there's a shift. It's very interesting. Often I think this is when a person realizes maybe they're not here to torture me. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe there are good reasons for this. Maybe I've gotten something good out of this. At any rate,
Mhm.
there does seem to be a shift in cases where
Mhm.
people are literally told by the ETs, "We want you to talk about this. Tell everyone." And that's a strong impulse with a lot of contactees. They feel the need to let the world know that the sky is falling. They
No.
they want people to know. So it's coming from, I think, both sides, the ET and the experiencer themselves. It's
Mhm.
they got to get this out.
I think, yeah, once you become like the light goes off and goes, holy crap, I think this really did happen. I'd always suspected myself as a child, I was very drawn to the stars, but then so was my grandfather. He used to have a telescope and watch, and so I thought it was quite normal. But then just weird stuff started going on. I'm like, and as an adult, I'm like, shit.
Yeah,
This is
it's
like a
it's it's
realization.
it's unfortunate we have to label it weird because I think ultimately it's a natural phenomena, and it's not really a mystery. We know what this is. We know these are beings from other places,
Hmm.
whether, I mean, you can call them dimensional. We're interdimensional ourselves. I'm personally, it's my assessment that most of this is extraterrestrials in the classic sense,
Hmm.
and it's been going on for millennia. And I
Yeah.
guess to some extent, there's definitely been a recent escalation, certainly since the atomic age in the 1950s and
Hmm.
the abduction era, I guess you would call it, because we don't
Yeah.
have. I mean, look at it historically. Yeah, there's fairies and there's all kinds of nature spirits and
Hmm.
kobolds and all kinds of entities that we would consider paranormal, I guess.
Hmm.
And I'm sure ETs are there too. But in the 1950s, it ramped up big time and
Hmm.
changed the way everyone thinks about, where we are in the universe, who we are, and are we alone? And so maybe that's
Yeah.
why it's been so hard for people to adjust, and can be scary. And I mean,
Hmm.
let's face it, they are abducting people, and
It's
I
intrusive,
it
like
is.
I'm just like I know like they come around during the day and stuff like with people because I mean you hear the experiences all the time, like broad daylight, um, but I find it's intrusive. I've even basically put it out there. I'm like, you know what? Like, if you want to come around during the day, like I'm almost okay with it. But sure as hell, I'm a lot better with it than I am at night when you enter my boudoir in my little sacred space. It's just like, then I'm a little volatile. It's just, I've just seen stuff and I'm just like, I look and I roll over. I'm like, nope, let's go back to sleep. I'm not doing it. Mm-mm. And, after what happens after that, who the heck knows? Because I don't have any memory of it either. But I've seen them like right in the room. I can almost like touch them. And it's weird
Yeah,
that they let me see them.
I think they do it on purpose because they don't have to. I think a lot of people are having contact and they have no idea. They show these markers, and I think what we're dealing with is this can be very scary for people. And if certainly has the appearance of being absolutely involuntary. I mean, when someone's abducted off of a highway in the middle, or taken out of their bedroom in the middle of the
That's
night,
what I mean. You're in my space. It's intrusive.
right? And it can be anywhere. Crowded condos. I've got cases out of hotel rooms, moving
Yeah.
vehicles, trains, planes,
I've had
boats.
clients with that,
So kidnapping is not a good thing under
No.
any guise.
And that's
Uh,
pretty much what it is,
yeah,
you
and
know.
that's my main problem with this phenomenon. And when I
Mm,
came into it, I was horrified. I was
mhm.
horrified. I'm like, all right, people are being, not only are aliens invading, no one's talking about it. People are being taken up and being experimented on.
I know.
And
Yeah.
to this day, you can see that the abduction phenomena, as we understand it, has a very strong medical theme. This is what most people describe as being physically examined.
Mhm.
Most people describe, these rooms in medical terms. They're put on an
Mhm.
exam bed. They're doctors. There's medical instruments. They are left with scars. I have to tell you, in the beginning, yeah, I was not a happy camper. But
No.
as I looked into it, I started to realize that this was perhaps not as horrific as I initially thought. Because what I didn't see was intentional sadism.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes.
Which kidnapping here on Earth doesn't turn out well if it's from an Earth person.
No, it's true.
And if
It's
someone
true.
is taken on board a UFO, they, yeah, are physically examined. And this can be
Mhm.
very scary. And people,
Mhm.
I'm going to say often, will tell me they are treated without a whole lot of bedside manner.
Mhm.
They are told, don't be afraid, we won't hurt you.
And
And
they do it.
then that's not always demonstrably true, because a needle might be coming towards your head and it hurts.
Mhm.
And that's as bad as I hear. And that's, not excusing it by any means.
Mhm. Oh
But what
no,
I
because
do,
most people are too fixated on the probing. Because every time you talk
yeah,
to people about aliens, I don't want to be probed, but there's other things that they do. Why is everybody so fixated on the probing
I know.
experience?
If I had a
I don't
nickel,
get it. It's like, you know, but
it's
okay.
funny. It's funny. It's charged. It's taboo. It's a perfect sort of giggly,
Yes,
nervous
but
news story.
it's just funny how people associate aliens with probing. When you say the first thing about it, well, yeah, they probe you. Out
Yeah,
of everything they do, that's what you get out of it.
I think
Okay.
that says more about Americans than the aliens.
It's
Really?
just like, okay, maybe they just got more than they than their fair share. I'm just trying to watch the chat room. Usually Amelia is on with me, and she's been off as her father's recently passed, so we're
No.
giving her a bit of a hiatus. So usually she does this. So I'm not being rude. I just want to try to get the comments and questions to you before we get too far ahead to be able to address them. So when we were talking about ETs that want exposures, Zachman says, depends on the ETs that you're talking about. Some want exposures, others don't want exposure. Then James has a question. He says, Preston, you mentioned this in your Colorado UFO segment, I'm sorry, the Salidas incident in the St. Louis Valley. Okay, ETs wanted the subject to film the UFO and got a lot of positive exposure.
Yeah.
And that's yeah,
Yeah, this is
James Ruiz.
I do think the ETs have an agenda to expose themselves, to
Hmm.
announce their presence, because we see what you would call display type behavior,
Right.
kind of like the Phoenix Lights. And yeah, I did a video. I have a YouTube channel. I'm putting out videos on my research,
Hmm.
and a recent one was on Colorado. And the case I did a top 20 cases in Colorado,
Oh, awesome.
and which is kind of a
That's a
fun
real
thing.
hotbed, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I loved lists anyway, so it's fun to do a top 20 list, and each state has their own kind of unique flavor and
Right.
encounters. And
Right.
the San Luis Valley is a huge hot spot that
Hmm.
definitely made it on the list. But the case I gave number one was the Salida sightings by
Mm.
in the San Luis Valley, actually. This is in the town of Salida, Colorado. And
Right.
Tim Edwards, his cafe owner, was outside with his daughter, 6-year-old Brandy. And she's like, Daddy, look up. And he's like, Shh, I'm busy. She's like, no, Daddy, look up. Look. And finally he looks up and gets a real shock. There's this giant cigar shape just hovering there. And it's darting
Oh.
around, and little craft are coming out of it. He runs inside, gets his camera. He's like, honey. So I come out. She grabs the binoculars, and they watch this thing for about 15 minutes, and he films it. And
Mm-hmm.
this film is outstanding. It's
Wow.
never been debunked.
Mm-hmm.
It's played all across the world and shows this
Wow.
giant kind of pencil-shaped UFO, a cigar-shaped UFO with little ones around it. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
and
blatantly, here I am.
yeah, and when he was doing this, he got a message, kind of this. I think it was telepathically. He doesn't straight out say it, but he says this thing came into my mind that they wanted me to see them, and they wanted me to film them. And
Yes.
the reason I think this is telepathic and intentional is because I hear this from other people.
Mm-hmm.
People are drawn outside sometimes, like, all right, they can feel them coming. And they have their camera ready. This is how some people are able to capture UFOs that appear to be posing for them, because they are.
Yeah. Wow.
And this is an agenda. I wrote a book called Schoolyard UFO Encounters about
Mm-hmm.
UFOs that hover over schools, and my latest one, UFOs over drive-in theaters.
Yeah, we're gonna cover that one. That'll be fun.
And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, they are showing themselves on purpose. They
So
want
it's
to
their
be.
way of disclosure, I guess.
Yeah, I
A
think
little
they're
bit at
like,
a
all right,
time.
don't, I think they know better than to just come down and land. And because we've got a lot of very religious people, we've got a lot of people who have no exposure to this. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are in a fear mindset who
Media,
shoot
government.
first. I mean, we have a lot of
Yes.
problems with let's discrimination. So
Mm-hmm.
if we have problems with someone whose skin color is slightly different,
Mm-hmm.
well, grays are a little different.
They're a little different for sure.
So, and we have had a tendency to shoot first and ask questions later. It was our actual official policy for a number of
Mm-hmm.
years. Let's shoot at these
Yeah.
things.
Well,
We stopped doing that though.
thankfully, I think too that with media and YouTube and internet, it's a matter of, oh, let's try to catch one of these little dudes, and next thing you know, you're an international sensation because you're the guy that caught a gray, for example. You look at, have you heard of the Stardust? I believe it's a Stardust Ranch,
Yeah.
right? I mean, this guy claims to be, taking a samurai sword and just like beheading these guys. And then they come in. He goes, they come down, they grab their own, they're gone. Have you heard of anything like that before? Do you put any, like, what's your
Um,
theory on that?
I
That's pretty
have.
extreme,
Yeah, his
really.
is extreme, but I did interview a lady who found her bed surrounded by grays. She wasn't happy about it.
Oh, I guess not.
And I mean, now she takes a much more benevolent viewpoint. She's been healed twice. They taught her how to do healing. You know,
Um,
but
okay.
at the time, she was not a happy camper. And she jumps out
Jeez.
of bed and kicks one in the neck, and it drops down dead. And all the others are horrified, and they scoop it up. And well, it ended the abduction. She didn't get abducted that night.
No, but
And
I wonder if she got a tenfold the next night. you know,
well, another
it's,
guy I talked
it's
to from England, kind of the same thing. He woke up and there was a bed right next to him. While he reaches back his arm and socks it in the face. Bam. And
wow.
that little cute gray, he says, was not cute at all after that. It opened its mouth and showed little sharp teeth, and it was an angry little gray.
Oh.
And he got knocked out. So he's kind of having a hard time with this. What I see is some people have a good time. They're fine with it. And
Mm,
others, no, there's a bell curve. And I've talked to people who've had literally the same experience. I mean,
mm-hmm.
the elements are the same. And they come away with widely varying sort of conclusions on how they feel about this.
It can be terrifying. I mean, I'm a very aggressive individual. I woke up one night, my eyes start to open, and I feel the hands on on the crown of my head. And I mean, the headboard's right there. There's a wall. There's no way anybody can be there. But mind you, I'm in a haunted house. I live in a haunted house, but our spirits are very respectful. I've come to learn the difference. And all I remember saying is, if I get my hands on you, I'll snap your neck. That's all I remember. It's the only thought that came out of my head. And all of a sudden it was all gone. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, that's okay. It took me a while to come to terms with the fact that, maybe I need to look at it from a different approach, because it was getting to a point where it was, I'm getting flashes of light in the room. The whole room lights up. I could be driving down along the river, and a translucent, iridescent figure just right across. I'm going, oh, they just seem to be everywhere. They've been over the house. Things have come through this house. And
Wow.
I mean, the walls in this house, there are basically 3 feet thick. And they shoot through one side of the house, and you hear the windows go.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. And it shoots through the other side of the house, and the other windows go like this. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I get it. This is a scary. This can be very scary
Yeah.
but I think fear never helps us in any situation. It's really, I mean, it has a tendency to cloud our judgment and obstruct rational behavior. And what I found is people who have a lot of experiences start to get over the fear at some point and are treated differently. This I see quite often. One guy, he was very scary in the beginning. After a while, it wasn't that scary, and he would talk to the ETs. He was once on their ship. He's like, "How big is this thing?" Because it was a huge, huge craft, and you never really got to see how big it was. And sometimes it would appear to be small, and sometimes larger. And the graded answer, he said, "No, really, how big is it?" And he says this was the only time he actually saw this gray smile. It smiled at him. It almost laughed and said, "Well, it's as big as we need it to be." And so
Wow.
people start to have conversations full on. One guy, Jim from Gainesville, Florida. I love this story because the grays come and he's like, "Oh, if you're going to take me, fix my hernia, fix my hernia." And they said, "Oh, we know of this condition that you speak, and we will repair it." And they did. And,
Wow.
and he's like, "Wow, that's what he thought." He's like, "Why are you taking me? Why are you taking me?" And they said, "Oh, we are interested in your genetic potential to live a long time." And I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting because this is something I've heard from other people. And Jim thought that was interesting because his grandfather was 106, still kicking.
That's longevity. Wow. Yeah.
So I started looking at these encounters, what's happening to people? What is this a good thing? Is this evil? This is the first thing I'd always ask people. It's like, is this, what do you think this is? Is this evil? And most people will say, no, I don't think it's evil. Most people feel like the ETs are not intentionally trying to scare them or hurt them. A number of people do feel like they're being treated badly, without respect, like a dog, like a lab rat.
Are there different types of grays then? Is that the issue? I mean, we know there's all kinds of different types of ETs. So the grays seem to be the common ones who do the abducting. Are they maybe different grays that mistreat from the ones that seem to be more compassionate?
Yeah, I would say that that's a fair statement. And also, I think we're looking at different types of situations because each person, they might meet the same grays, but they're not scared. They got over it. and they know they're not going to be tortured or anything. Whereas definitely some seem to be very loving and very, much more perhaps skilled in human relations because sometimes they don't understand human emotions, and they had a learning curve as well. So some people fell on that early sort of spectrum of the learning curve where they got some ETs who didn't understand. And some people are taken by what I would call Dr. Greys, or perhaps soldiers who
Yeah,
don't
I
have,
hear that's pretty terrifying.
these are Greys who have a job to do. This is an emergency situation for them. They need
Hmm.
to get this done. It's not about soothing your emotions, because right now they have a job to do and it needs to be done very quickly.
Hmm.
And so human emotions got pushed to the side. Now I think we're seeing a lot more communication among
Hmm.
with experiencers. And,
Hmm.
and if you, what I found is people who have no fear are often not paralyzed. They are allowed to walk around and they
Yeah.
have conversations, and it's a full-on normal thing. And they're like,
Hmm.
and if they're examined, they're given the reasons. Like, well, you have a blockage in your heart. We need to cure your heart. Or,
Hmm.
we really need to do this. And if you were in our situation, you would do the exact same thing. We're
Hmm.
very sorry. That's what one guy was told. She's like, why are you so scared? Aren't you happy? We finished our experiments with you. Aren't you happy? And he's like, no, I'm mad as hell. And
Hmm.
the Gray, whose name was Nelda, I just found that fascinating. I want to do a research project on alien names.
I know it's
and,
pretty wild.
and
No.
she says, "Oh yeah, we have a problem with human fear. We didn't understand it and human emotion."
Hmm.
And he's like, "I'm mad as hell." And she says, "What's mad? What's hell?" And he had to describe it to her. And she's
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, we've had a lot of problems, and but if you were in our situation, you would
Hmm.
do precisely the same thing." And the fact is, that's true. Look
Well, a
at
little bit of anesthetic maybe might help. You know,
Yeah.
not
Well,
not when you're.
they did it for Betty Hill. She's like, "Ow, ow, ow, that hurts," and they put their hand on her head and eased the
Yeah.
pain. So they can do that. But
Hmm.
the guy in England I interviewed, he's like, "They didn't do that for me." And I
Wow.
and so I can, some people I'll say, "Oh, I've documented 300 cases of people who've been healed," and I have.
Yeah.
And I will get contacted by people who's like, "Well, they didn't heal me. I think they're demonic." And I'm like, wow. And I looked into demons because there are a lot of people who feel this way.
Yes.
And I can tell you pretty confidently they're not demonic as we would think of demons,
Hmm.
because there are evil spirits. There
There
are
are.
spirits who are just nasty people,
That's true.
who want to hurt you. And,
Hmm.
and this is not what we see, generally speaking. I'm going to underline that, generally speaking, with UFOs. What
Hmm.
I see, and this is a very strong pattern, is when people have any conversation at all, it's usually involving 3 or 4 things. It's warnings about
Hmm.
our environment, warnings about our warlike ways, uh,
Hmm.
this sort of things. Um,
Hmm.
Dietary advice, even. They cured one lady of a kidney failure, catastrophic kidney failure. They cured her. She thought could have been angels at first. She kind of knew it wasn't,
Yeah. Let's
especially
just
after
go with angels. Makes me feel better. Yeah.
but she was taken on board again. This time, the healing happened in her bedroom. And she told everyone
Wow.
it was angels. She kind of knew it wasn't because they were short little humanoids. And they took her again and they said, "Oh, your kidneys look much better." And they said, "Well, here, look at your liver." And they showed it in full living color. Which is they have this instruments that can do this. I hear it described, fairly frequently. And they showed
Wow.
her liver, and they're like, "Look at all this dark stuff. You have to stop drinking Diet Coke." So
Wow.
my point is, yeah, they'll tell some stop smoking. One guy was smoking marijuana, and they appeared, the Greys, and said, "Stop smoking marijuana. This is not the life we had planned for you." And I'm like, "What? You're planning his life?" That's kind of my thought.
The story just has so many twists and turns.
But they
But
do.
it is hypothetically like a lineage thing, isn't it? Where if they've taken you, chances are they've taken everyone in your family before you, going back 1,000 years,
Yep.
or 100
At least
years or whatever. So
50% of the cases seem to follow that pattern, but not all. I know people who have a one-off. They have their little ride aboard a UFO, and that's it. And some are very, very friendly. It's like literally a ride to see Saturn. I've got a case like that, and that happened
wow,
to. I've read that in other cases. I'm like, wow, they.
that's insane.
I'm
That'd be
telling you,
fun.
yeah, some of these onboard experiences are great fun. It is not uncommon for someone to be taken to the control room and taught how the craft works, how to fly the craft, or actually sat down in the chair and allowed to fly it. And
Okay,
that
see, all doing is wrong. Coming in the boudoir at night, that's not a good idea. Feeling all sleepy and vulnerable,
people
That's
have told me,
fascinating.
why don't they just knock on the front door? And I'm like, well, I've got 2 cases where they've done that. They're not my personal cases, but I know that this happened with Whitley Strieber. And
Yes.
at his cabin, he had a visitor, Michael Talbot, who thought it was a dream, except it wasn't, because Whitley Strieber woke up and saw the whole thing from the stairwell. He watched it happen.
That's insane.
So
So they can hear you, and I mean, and if they've abducted you before, then there should be that telepathic link,
humans
right?
have a strong fear reaction. We've got sort of a reptilian brain, I guess. I don't know but it's ingrained. Fear is a very simple, strong reaction that people have. And it's totally understandable. It's something unknown. And I think
For me, never so much fear as it was annoyance and volatility. For me, it's just more annoying than anything. I think deep down, because it's happened for so long, it didn't really, not a fearful thing so much as it was I don't know, I don't have a lot of patience for, as I say,
yeah.
for stupidity. And I'm thinking, how many times do I have to say, I'm just bossy like that, I guess. So they probably just want to knock me out. Just shut up and just take it.
Please, not tonight. I've got a headache. Come on. I need my sleep.
Right?
Yeah, one lady, they're like, we need, she lived actually not far from where I live now,
Right.
here in Reseda. The Greys came. She had a fully conscious encounter. They surrounded her bed. They're like, we need to take you. And she's like, no, you can't take. I've got a job. You can't take me. And we're like, you'll be fine. She's like, no, I have a boyfriend. I have a family. You can't take me. And they took her on board. And like, we need to cut your arm. She said, no, you don't cut me. And they did. And they're like, well, we now need to do an operation on your brain. And that set her off.
Well, sure. Geez, I wonder why that would be a thing.
And she doesn't remember what happened after that. She woke up the next morning. There was a cut on her arm. She showed it to me. And she had repeated experiences. They would come back and try to talk to her. And they would always say, you won't remember. And she says, oh, yeah, I will. No, you won't. And she says, yep, I'm going to remember. And she always did. Said, don't tell your dad. She says, I'm going to go straight and tell my dad right now. She was feisty.
Defiant. So what did they do to her brain? Like, I've heard people say that, they do something to, I guess, help them evolve, just to evolve them quicker.
Yeah, that seems to be their agenda. The human race, Homo sapiens, have all kinds of missing links. We don't know. Our idea of human origins is pretty patchy. I mean, it's sketchy. We don't really know, do we?
No.
And there seems to be some evidence, certainly in the modern era, that there's genetic manipulation with the hybrid babies. And if you look back through history, that's a theme that keeps turning up. And it becomes pretty clear that, yes, there probably is genetic intervention stretching back millennia, and they're continuing to do it today. And they are implanting people. Implants often get a bad rap. People are like, it's to track and mind control. This is not a good thing. I'm like, well, hold on here. I've got some actual evidence. Instead of you guys just speculating, how about let's talk to some people who've got some actual, word of mouth information. And
okay, so what's your take on implants?
I've got at least 4 firsthand cases where people were told directly by the ETs the purpose of the implants. And evidence beyond that, circumstantial, I guess, that and what they were told was, in one case, to measure your vital signs, to monitor your health. Another was told it was specifically to boost your immune system. And another was told it was to measure the levels of pollution in your body. And boosting health comes up in a number of cases, actually. And
Yeah.
that's the strongest thing I see. I'm not saying that it's not used for communication or like hypnotizing you and trancing you out or
Mm-hmm.
making you forget.
Or
There's a
tracking. I mean,
so
mind you, I imagine they have the technology. They don't really need a chip to track you by any means.
that's what they've told a number of contactees. Oh, we don't need to chip to and the
Oh,
fact is people have had their implants removed. One lady I
right.
interviewed firsthand went to Dr. Roger Lear, got
Yes.
real famous for that, doing just that.
Mm-hmm.
Had her implant removed and the ETs were back. They came two
So they
weeks
knew.
later. And one guy I interviewed firsthand, his wife was joking with him. They're sitting in the living room, and she's like, "What's that boil on your face?" Because it had appeared kind of suddenly. And
Mm-hmm.
she says, "I wonder if it's an implant." And she was just joking. So he's taken that night, and
Wow.
he's fully conscious. This is not regressive hypnosis recalled, which I absolutely support, and I know is
Yeah.
valid. It does work,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people recall this without it, and he was one of them.
Wow.
And he's had a missing time, but he recalled this one. And the gray was talking to him. He's like, and the gray was like talking to him like a child. He's like, the gray said, "This is ridiculous. I can't believe this." And the guy, I think Taylor was his name. What? He's like, what? He says, "It's this implant. You're going to try and get it removed, aren't you?" And Taylor's like, "No. Oh, that's an implant? No, I'll leave it alone. I was just joking, honest." You know, and ET says, "No, you may be joking, but you're going to keep thinking about it. At some point, you'll probably take it out. We're going to take it out and we're going to put it back into a place you'll never find it." Is what
Oh, wow.
Gray told
Spiteful.
him.
Wow. Well, so they clearly know what you're thinking. It's like,
And
oh, they
so
must have a field day with me. Assholes. It's
I
like,
don't
wow.
know. Some people I talk to, they pepper the aliens with questions, just bombard them, and don't get a single answer. Others are,
Yeah.
"Oh, what do you want to know? What do you want to know?" One
Hmm.
lady, I hope she's listening. I love her. She's in my book, Onboard UFO Encounters.
Oh, give her a shout
Uh,
out.
yeah, Dolly. I love. She's.
Nice.
I'm a huge fan of her, and uh,
Hmm.
she has had extensive contact, and she has remarkable communication, and has got
Hmm.
kinds of information.
Do you think it's because if there's a rapport, she doesn't show fear, there's respect, love, maybe to a degree?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's exactly it. I think it's multiple things. I think definitely it matters a lot how you react, plain and
Hmm.
simple. But
Hmm.
I am not going to sit here and say all ETs are our friends. I'm not going to do it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a wide, wide universe. And I have
Hmm.
talked to enough people who've like, listen, I have severe health problems. I've
Hmm.
got really bad gynecological problems.
Thanks to
Uh,
them.
yeah, and
Wow.
a number of people have said, I've got PTSD. This has not been fun for me.
Yeah.
Just so you know. And people
Hmm.
have, peed in their pants out of fear when these
Hmm.
things come down. It is for real. Scary for
Oh,
some
I
people.
can see that. I've had people say to me that they've woken up part way, but they think they're in a dream state, but they're like, but I'm hitting the ceiling and I'm being pulled out a window. Like they wake up as it's happening and they just see themselves going through a physical space, like I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Like
Yeah.
how do you even function in society after something like that? It
Uh,
can't be easy.
I've
Like,
often thought, how would I react if I woke up to find a gray next to my bed? I would probably definitely be startled, to say the least. And what if
um,
it's a 9 foot tall praying mantis? I'm like,
okay, see right there, yeah. This was just I won't just say just a gray because that was something in itself, but it was still probably about 4.5 feet high. And I mean, I could reach out almost and touch it, and it's just staring at me with those big eyes. It was like, you know, I mean, my reaction was just, nope. Rolled over, went back to bed, and went, please go away, please go away. And it did.
it's
I
my
think the effect was just to make contact, like the visual, maybe.
Yeah. I'm going to just say it's my professional assessment if someone can be a UFO professional. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people and
Right.
I've read the books and I'm like, what
Yeah.
is happening to people? Why are they being taken on board? Is this bad for us?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say no. I don't think it's bad. I don't think UFOs are, generally speaking, a nefarious phenomena. I don't think it's evil. I don't think UFOs are something to be afraid of. I
Right.
think for the most part, they are. I am convinced that they've got multiple agendas. One is to produce hybrid babies, particularly the grays.
Mm.
And I can't walk away from that. I've got too many cases from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Another is to heal humanity. I've
Mm.
got 300 documented cases of everything from colds to cancer. And it's ongoing. And these are very well documented cases, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot disregard the fact that some of these people feel like these are their friends. This is family.
Mm.
And when the actual onboard experience, the worst part is the physical examination. But beyond that, it's like I said, warnings, being taken to the engine room, taught how it
Mm-hmm.
works, being given messages of a very spiritual nature.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see very consistently is that people who are having contact are the nicest people, and they are spiritually advanced. They are psychic.
Well,
Like no.
Dolly says we are family and she's in chat. And she wanted you to know she was there. So I want to pass that on to you.
Nice, nice. Yeah, she said she would watch.
There
So
she
hi,
is.
so hi, Dolly.
There you
Yeah,
go. She goes, yes,
yeah,
we are family. She's reiterating what you're saying.
yeah. And I love her because she reminds me that this phenomena is a warm, nurturing, wonderful thing for humanity for a lot of people. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
say that everyone who's having contact, is, at that level or at, there or
Mm-hmm.
have experience, because there are some people who are having negative experiences. But on
Well,
the belt, there's a bell curve of
mhm.
experience. And
Well, I hear the mantis are just wretched. Like they're not very kind at all.
um, I wouldn't say that is my experience. Uh,
Okay, yeah, because I've read a couple of cases. I'm just like,
but, but but yeah, some are not nice.
no.
I mean, I think it's the operations with no information that really bother me. When someone's like taken on board and they're screaming their head off, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ETs are like, just be quiet and stick something up your nose, and you hear the crunch, and you're bloody, and it's like, hold on here. This is what is going on, and this is
Mm-hmm.
why I flip flop back and forth, like, oh my gosh, this is bad. This is bad. Oh no, this is pretty good. No, I'm not. Oh, wait a second, this is bad. Because
Change my mind. Yeah.
every time I say, oh, they're healing us and they are space brothers, someone comes at me with a negative story, and
Mm-hmm.
says, don't forget this happens. So you have a bell curve of experience, and what I see is their behavior is the same umbrella as human behavior. It really is, except it's skewed far, far more towards the positive. It,
I think it maybe varies on the individual. Like Zachman says, because I'm a contactee myself, and it took me 7 years before I publicly came out with my experiences. Like you said, like there's some people they just don't want to go there. It's just like, no, screw that. And then you have those who are like, yeah, hey, by the way, I,
yeah,
I have a lot of friends in the field, and after speaking to different people, they're like, nah, just blurt it out, just go for it, because it'll make you feel better and it'll ease everything. And you know what? It really does. I don't know if I don't know if you find that since you've gone public that it's helped you, but I feel a little bit more like I'm in control, I guess,
yeah,
by verbalizing it. Do you find that your clients feel that you are somewhat in control by it's not a secret anymore?
for sure. And that's the number one complaint I hear from people who are like having contact and view it in a negative way, is the
Right.
lack of control. But like, I have no control over this, and that scares me.
Yes.
And so that I'd say would be the number one complaint from people.
Yeah, I can see
But
that. I
yeah,
can see that.
people definitely. I think it's a freeing experience. I've never been shy. I'll say UFO at work. I don't care. I'll tell
Yeah.
everyone, oh yeah, I believe in UFOs. You want to hear? Because it's real and it's important people know.
I
And
agree with you.
and I don't think this is something we have to run away from screaming. They're not going to invade and eat us for breakfast. That's not what's going to happen.
Well, maybe reptilians will. Should I say that?
I, I well,
See, there we go. You're
I'm
hesitating.
I've had people tell me that, yeah, and
Yeah.
I have never had a first-hand case where I can point to, cannibalistic reptilian ETs cooking
No.
humans. But
Yeah.
I've
Have you had
certainly heard
cases with
that.
them though?
Yeah,
Reptilians?
yeah,
Really? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
But not a lot. I don't get a lot of reptilian cases, and sometimes there's not associated with UFOs. Really, they're just someone sees them out in the wilderness somewhere. Usually,
Oh, really?
that's what I've heard in most cases.
Subterranean, I guess.
And so I'm not sure they're ETs. I think maybe they're intelligent dinosaurs from, and have been living here forever.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know. We're still at learning stages with a lot of this. I've got a much better handle on the ET agenda.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think we know why they're here. They're
Mm,
here for the genetic material. They're here to wake up humanity to our own potential, to really
mm-hmm.
stop us from destroying our planet and ourselves. That
Mm-hmm.
is the ramped up agenda from day one. This
Mm-hmm.
whole phenomena began in the 1950s with George Adamski. He was a contactee who met friendly human-looking ETs. And then out comes, Daniel Fry and Truman Bethlehem and Howard Menger and the Mitchell sisters and George Van Tassel
Mm-hmm.
and, Cedric, Cunningham or something like that, Allingham. They
Mm-hmm.
all have the same story
Right.
in its basic bones, which is friendly contact with human ETs who
Mm-hmm.
have the same message. It was
Mm-hmm.
warnings about nuclear proliferation, destruction of our environment. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the 50s. And then lo and behold, here comes Betty and Barney Hill, 1961.
Yeah.
When they had their experience, it was revealed some years later.
Yes.
But in the late 60s is when we started hearing reports of scary abductions by Greys.
Mm-hmm.
And that took over the contactee era. And people thought,
Mm-hmm.
that the contactee era ended and it was never true. It's all hoaxers. I'm like, no, 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 not so fast.
Mm-hmm.
It was pushed underground. And the truth is, people who have a friendly ride and are taken to see Saturn don't often go running to the media or to a therapist or to a researcher. They don't want to be killed or laughed at. And those stories are sometimes a hard sell. Whereas someone who's like, oh my gosh, they probed me. And
Yeah, it's always a thing. It's probing.
and that gets a lot of attention.
It does, yeah.
So what
Yeah.
if someone, squeaky wheel phenomena, if someone's having a real problem,
Mm-hmm.
that starts to get a lot of media, and the media is fear-based to a certain extent.
Yeah.
They really kind of thrive on that and try to,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
one
you're not wrong. Yeah.
that's fit. I mean, there's an evil force on our planet, the one percenters. I don't know what you want to call it, the Illuminati,
Oh,
whatever.
yes.
But you can see it from the unequal distribution of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
the divisiveness, and all of this. That there are forces, probably human, I feel, but who
That are
knows?
worse. Yeah. Do you think that they work with ET? I mean, let's face it, we've got technology that kind of you have to question where that come from.
Yeah.
And do you think that,
Well,
there
there's
is that link?
certainly been some connection, but according to other researchers, and I've only looked into it, I'd say peripherally, perhaps not super deep into
Right.
the Nazi UFO connection.
Right.
But
Yes.
yeah, apparently Hitler did have his hands on some crashed UFOs and possible contact
Mm-hmm.
going on. And I don't know if the ET groups are nefarious, but like I said, I mean, there's logic would tell you that there are ETs out there who don't have our best interest in mind because there's just a wide universe and we're going to have the whole spectrum of good and bad. It's just the way the universe kind of works.
Well, we're just a
But
grain of sand on a very big beach, technically.
yeah, and if you look, it would be so much easier to prove ETs are benevolent than humans.
Yes.
It
Oh,
really
yes.
would, and that's kind of one of the reasons I'm not scared.
Hmm.
And another reason is because like the more I look at it, I'm like, well, this is good. Oh, I like this one. I mean, there's one lady I interviewed, Pat, from Florida and Louisiana, who was having contact with Greys and
Hmm.
being physically examined, and they were operating on her. And once they pulled her on board, they're like, "Oh my gosh, your lung looks like you might have lung cancer. We're going to have to fix this." And they fixed it.
Wow.
And when she was a little girl, she had leukemia and it disappeared. The doctors never could figure it out. And now she
I've heard
wondered.
those stories. Yeah, they're fantastic.
And then she had this incredible experience where she woke up next to a UFO, standing on the ground in the morning, looking over this town in Mexico, she thought. Maybe Peru, she didn't know, but it wasn't America. And our ETs and Greys are standing next to her, human looking ETs and Greys. And there's another UFO. They're both these giant UFOs with ramps. And she has this mission. She's going to go into town with the ETs and pull people out and get them on board these UFOs. She has no idea why she's doing this. She doesn't question it. And neither do the people going in, that they're collecting. Followed them like sheep. It's very strange.
That's
Right?
crazy.
Right? They're kind of hypnotized or something. Or she's, you're in a slightly different state of consciousness, perhaps.
Hmm.
But she says we collected 1,000 people, hundreds upon hundreds. Like you think thousands, maybe 2,000. There was two
Must have
giant
taken all
crabs.
bloody day.
She says it took a couple of hours. Yeah.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and so this UFO is filled up with people, and she's taken on board the ramp, and she gets to go to the top level. She says it's a beautiful pink light up there. The lower levels, she says, were really bright and hurt her eyes. But she
Hmm.
saw human-looking ETs, grays, different races of human-looking ETs, blacks, white
Hmm.
people, which I thought was kind
Yeah.
of interesting, but all wearing blue jumpsuits. And suddenly, these uh, two UFOs lift up as there's an explosion off in the nearish distance. It's a volcano.
Wow.
It's a darn
Oh,
volcano.
wow.
And she watches this pyroclastic, flow of mud sweep over this town. And it was the most horrific thing she's ever seen in her life. She
So
says,
they did a rescue, basically.
basically, yeah. And she says, boulders and chunks of ice and houses and trees and bodies just swept over this town. And the UFOs came down again, scooped up a few more people, came down again, scooped up the last amount they could. Next thing she knows, one of these things is landing in her driveway in Louisiana. And they're letting her go. And she wakes up the next morning and calls her girlfriend. She's like, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe I had another UFO dream." And her girlfriend's like, "Oh my God, turn on the TV." Pat, turn on the TV. And Pat turns on the TV. This is like November 1985, November 13, something like that,
Yeah.
14th. And so Pat turns on the TV and there was a volcanic explosion. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano in Colombia had exploded and swept over the town of Armero, which was the town she saw, she believes, and
That is
killed
insane.
23,000 people. 23,000 people.
Wow.
But I'm going to lower that tally down to 20,000 because I'm thinking these people were rescued. So
Rescued.
what does that say about the extraterrestrials and their mission here on Earth? It's not the only case like it. RD6 Killer Clark, a great researcher, relatively new to the scene, has similar cases where people are rescued from hurricanes. I've got cases, people rescued from car accidents, people rescued from falls, people rescued from drowning, people rescued from unemployment.
Did they get a
So
job in the craft? What is that? It's like
ETs told them,
that's interesting.
yeah, like this is where you're going to be working. Don't worry. There's a job.
Wow.
Or
Rescue from unemployment. You're gonna have just how many people are gonna be messaging you. I want in on that. Wow,
so
that's
I am,
crazy.
and they don't ask for an award. They don't need, that ego boost to say, "Oh, we did this for you." So I think a
Right.
lot of people have miraculous cures. This is a
Mm.
thing. Miraculous cures is a medically documented phenomenon, and doctors can't explain it. Things spontaneously go into remission.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, and people say, "Oh, angels! I saw a glowing figure next to my bed." And I looked
Yeah.
into angels. I'm like, "Wow, okay, I think angels are real. I really do." But I'm thinking there's a bleed through. Some people might be seeing ETs, and nope, it's angels, and vice versa. Some people think this is an angel. I'm like, well, I'm not so sure. You're in a
Wow.
rounded room. One lady had
Yeah.
diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, devastated. Her husband, they're crying in bed. Like, what are we going to do? They're just crying and crying. And finally, she falls asleep and wakes up on board a UFO surrounded by grays who don't say a word and and examine her. Next thing she knows, she goes to the doctor. They can't find a trace of it. I talked to
Yeah.
another lady, never had contact in her life. She's from Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And, had very bad back problems from an old injury and wakes up, grays her under her bed. She's like, "Who are you? What are you doing? Oh my God." And they didn't say a word. They flipped her onto her stomach like a rag doll and started pressing instruments against her back. She felt something. And
Mm.
they flip her back onto her back and they're filing out. This is all very quick. They walk through the wall. She looks out the window. There's eerie blue light. And she's like, "Wow." And she jumps up, rushes to the window, and the light flicks off, and they're gone. And she's like, "What the heck just happened?"
And it flipped around like a pancake. It's
Yeah.
like, wow.
And you know what? They healed her back.
Wow.
So that's awesome. I mean, people, why would they do that? And I was trying to figure out why. And I finally figured it out. It took me years because I've been studying this UFO healing phenomena for a long, long time. That was my first book. And I recently updated it with 300 cases.
Wow.
And
And your take on it is this is just something that they do, or is there something specific about these individuals? Sometimes
yeah,
you get an old family line maybe that they know that this person may be instrumental somewhere down the line, or they have been. Is it a repayment thing, a pay it forward thing? Do you find anything like that in your research?
yeah, I certainly do. It's
Wow.
evenly divided between men and women, so it's not that. It's not
Yeah.
blood type. I can tell you that.
Oh,
It's not.
yeah.
It's not race.
Yeah.
I've talked to people of all different races who've had full-on encounters.
Hmm.
It's not education.
No.
It's not religion. It's not politics.
Hmm.
It's none of that. They are non-discriminatory. It is definitely following family lines. 50% of the cases of people who have been healed do seem to have that going on, but 50% don't. And what I found was a very interesting pattern. It's kind of your profession, your job, your vocation. What I found was an enormous number of police officers, doctors, artists, social workers, environmentalists, uh, human rights activists. And so I asked, like this lady, what do you do for a living? And she says, "Oh, I'm an arts director is what I did for years and years, but now I'm all into animal rights and human rights." I'm like, "Oh, there you go." And this is something I see over and over and over again.
Mm.
People who are contactees, experiencers, have an extraordinary connection with animals, a huge respect for planet Earth,
Yeah.
are working very hard to improve
Hmm.
humanity in some capacity.
Hmm.
Doctors is a huge thing. Inventors. One guy's being healed of a hole in his heart, and they said, "We are very interested in your work in electronics." That's what they told him. So this kind of warms my heart a little bit. It's like, all right, guys, some of you guys are absolutely really good. A
Mm.
lot of them are. This is why
Yeah.
let's take a second look at this. Why are ETs here? Are they here to
Hmm.
take over? And no, I don't think they are. I think they care about us deeply and they're slowly improving the human race. It's a very special thing to be human. They adore the human form. They are obsessed. They know more about us physically than we do. And I'm going to extend that to spirituality, because what I see is people who are contacted are very psychic, often before, but often afterwards. And a number have been told, oh, this is our gift to you. This is what Pat was told. This is what another lady, I call her Lynette, was told. That this is, we've given you this in exchange for what you have given us. So they seem to be very interested in that.
It's funny when you say spirituality, because, there's stories of people who are, they get in there, they get taken, and they're like praying to God, and they're like, we don't care about your God. You really need to connect up with my producer, Joe, who runs ICAR, runs and owns, which is the largest contactee site literally on the planet. And it basically, I don't know, they've got, I don't know how many tens of thousands people, 70,000 people. So it's who have basically come to them with their accounts of what has happened, abductee, contactee, and it's ICAR, ICAR. And you can always, hang on after the show and he'll come on, and you can always have a parlay if you like. It's just really, really well versed and might be able to exchange information, So that's something he's been running for a really long time, and it's currently active, and people do reach out with stories. I mean, we have almost 70,000 people. That goes to show you how many people are having experiences of some sort, and it scares the shit out of me, man.
No, it's good news. It's good.
It is. It's good, I guess, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, because you would think that it would be just as simple to come in and do a whole close encounter thing. Bam, there's a ship. Here we are. All right. It's the whole sneaking around thing that really bothers me. It's like, I don't know. I just don't see how you're this superior being and you're lurking around people's bedrooms at night. When you put the scene together, it's just like wrong on so many levels,
Well, as near as I can tell, they have made contact with government officials.
Yes.
The Eisenhower meeting of 1954 is just one example.
Yes.
But there are multiple examples of that. And they did urge to disclose, and they did urge to, impart spiritual information. And we said, no, we just want your technology. Give us money, money, money. Control, control, control. Yes. And so I think that would have changed the way contact would have been made on Earth. But because of that, they have to come in sort of surreptitiously. And I'm going to blame our government for them. Shame on you. You are on my naughty list for how you have handled this phenomena, for real. Because they took our tax dollars, millions of our tax dollars. An enormous amount of money is spent on this subject. And it's us who's paying for it, and they're calling us liars. They're saying, no, it's not real. They're saying, no, what UFO? We don't have, what? We don't know. No,
they really play stupid, don't they? It's like...
Not anymore. Those days are
Ronald Reagan apparently was very vocal about it, about seeing them and having experiences. And, some of the presidents have been very like, oh, yeah, we see them, have had all kinds of experiences. Others like, oh, that's not a thing.
Like, surprising number of presidents have. Yeah, Carter, he talked about his sighting.
Yeah.
Ford called for congressional investigations.
Yeah.
So we do see that. Obama certainly has mentioned Area 51 and UFOs, and as has Clinton, and they all do. We all, Nixon supposedly saw the ET bodies.
Yes.
Was full on in the loop.
So that's what I mean. In the last 5 to 7 years, all of the world's governments came through with disclosure and said, yep, this is a thing. They've opened up their Air Force or their naval records with all the experiences that their pilots or their sea crews have seen and experienced. And I remember reading that the United States was the last one to disclose. It's just like,
yeah. And we still don't have the full disclosure from a sitting world leader followed up with actual ET bodies and a craft. And that's the disclosure I'm looking for.
Yes.
I don't want to see a film. I don't want to
No.
see a piece of metal. I don't want to see a thread that,
Hmm.
it's disingenuous. Because
Yes.
we know that they have the crash saucers. Roswell is the case that is blown wide open,
Hmm.
and there are some hundreds of witnesses.
Yes.
There
It's funny
is
because
no way.
it's like everybody else knows they're out there, and then you've kind of got the government in the back going, "No, y'all crazy." It's like, what? We're all crazy. Okay, but
Yeah.
it's almost like, you know, like they don't give people a whole lot of credit. I don't mean just the US government. I mean governments on average just don't give people a whole lot of credit. And even now with technology out there and the internet, camera phones, everything, you can't hide it anymore because people are capturing it everywhere. And with that
Right.
being said, I have to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. So huge thank you to Folgers Coffee, who are partially sponsoring tonight's show, and they do make our show possible. Thank you. We love you. And we're back. So
I
gotta
love
do
my
my
morning
duty.
coffee.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, make sure it's a Folgers. So but
But but yeah, I think the problem is our government, our
mm,
military, uh, is perhaps not the most spiritually evolved and are a little bit fear-based. And so
mm,
I feel for them when they're looking at this phenomenon, thinking, "Oh my gosh, this might not be good news for us, and
mhm,
this could be a national security threat for us." And yes, it is. It obviously is if they're abducting people against their will,
mhm,
and if they're shutting down our missiles. But that does not mean these ETs don't have our best interests in mind. And I'm not sure
mhm.
our government does. I'm serious.
No, I don't. I don't think you're wrong on that.
So our government is being kind of pushed into disclosure. They're not
Mhm,
doing this willingly. They're doing it because they have no choice. This is kind of
mhm,
like the civil rights movement. This is not something everyone embraced. No, it's something whose idea has come, whose time has
mhm.
come. An idea whose time has come is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think our government will disclose because if they don't, no one will ever believe a darn word they say ever again.
Yeah.
Lie, 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 too much, and
Yeah.
we no longer will listen. We're just not going to listen to you. You have lost your influence. Sorry.
No, it's true. It's true. People are seeing these things all over the place. You can't just hide that anymore. I'll tell you a quick little story. I'm in Niagara Falls, so I'm very close to New York, not far from the base. And sorry, excuse me. I have coffee and I have milk and it's rebelling. I shouldn't be having milk ever, but it's a vice. So, but in the morning, one morning, we heard they almost sound like one of the F series jets going over. And when we looked out, we could see that they were just flying over the house. Didn't think anything of it because the base is right across the river from us. And that night, um, Wayne was coming home along the river and he texted me, goes, "Holy shit, you're never gonna believe what I just saw." And I'm like, "What's that?" you know, and he said something shot right out from the only place in the whole Niagara River where a craft could be in would be where the whirlpool is because it's very, very, very deep there. It's the only spot. And he said something shot right up out of that area. And he goes, because he was just turning onto the street and he stopped and he went, "What the hell?" And it just went, and
Wow.
within about 10 minutes, huge, huge, helicopter chasing down the river and jet not far behind it. So I often wonder because it looked like there was a helicopter that was escorted that morning, and I'm thinking, hmm, somebody knows something. Wonder if there's a rendezvous, a little bit of a meeting, or it's just weird. Like there's a lot of UFO sightings in Niagara Falls. I have, another friend who works with MUFON upstate New York, and she goes, "Yeah, we have sightings here, here, and here," and I'm just like, "Yeah."
Yeah, I did a video on New York. It's
Did you?
oh yeah, it's a huge hotspot. The number one case I picked for New York was the blackout, from 1965,
Oh,
which has a huge UFO connection. They basically shut down our power, is what it looks like.
wow.
And it was I think it's still to this day, the world's largest UFO related blackout. But there's a lot of them.
Wow.
And they
They
have
do draw
records.
power. Is that why they would do that? Are they drawing from that power?
I'm not sure that's what happened in this case. I think it was more of a demonstration. There was an actor, Stuart Whitman, who said he had contact, and that was the message he was given. It was never verified firsthand, but it was like coming from one researcher, and no one ever asked Stuart Whitman until he passed away. But yeah,
Right.
that's what he said happened, that it was actually a demonstration. And this is, I
Mm.
think, certainly what happened at Malmstrom Air Force Base when they shut off in South Dakota and other missile bases. Once
Mhm.
they hovered over the Indian Point nuclear power station in upstate New York, and this is according to
Mhm.
Philip and Brogno and
Mhm.
other researchers. But at any rate, they were hovering over one reactor that turned out, after inspecting it, had an irregularity in it. So maybe they were trying to point that out.
That
But
would make sense.
they seem to be very concerned about our use of nuclear power. And they're like, please
I
stop.
can't
What are you
blame
doing?
them. You can't blame them. I mean, we're pretty irresponsible, I think, with our environment. Might be the easiest way to put it.
Yeah. So this is why I think we have to really look at what we're dealing with here. Who's the
Mhm.
enemy here? Is it our governments? Is it the greed and corruption that is our big
Mhm.
problem here, or is it abductions? I think really the abductions are being done for a reason, and we know what the reason is. It's a
Mhm.
collection of genetic material, and it's to heal people, and it's to wake them up. Period. Wake up.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure even that term abduction is the right word to use sometimes. I've talked to a
Yeah.
number of people who've been invited on board,
Mhm.
literally just invited, very friendly.
Mhm.
But I am interested to see how this all rolls out. I mean, if disclosure happens, and it looks like we're
Mm.
pushing towards it, God, I hope
Mhm.
so.
Mhm.
If we can just have a president say, "Listen,
Yeah.
UFOs are real," period.
Mhm.
And
Well, I think they did when they disclosed a lot of their military records, right? Information on what their pilots had seen. Oh my goodness, Dolly's very active. have to go through that in a little while. um, you know, all the world's governments came through and said, yes, our sea vessels do see, objects coming out of the water, going back into the water. Our military or Air Force people are indeed seeing people coming, or crafts coming from the stars, from the skies. Like, yes, it's there. But yet they don't come right out and, they give you records of eyewitness accounts, but they don't really come right out and go, yes, okay, you're right. This is a thing. Because then they would have to admit that Area 51 has been a secret kept from the people all these years,
yeah,
right?
talk about a can of worms. This
That's
is
right.
this is more than a can. It's
That's
many
right.
cans. Yeah, there's
Exactly.
gonna be a lot of people with a lot of questions and like, all
Yes.
right, UFOs are real. Well, then I am suing
That's right.
because
Yeah.
you're not protecting me. Grays came and got me, and here's the scar, and it's your fault. Where were you?
Well, that
Um,
and how many people were bullied back in, let's say, the 50s? Let's say, like, the whole Men
yeah,
in Black thing. Oh, well, you didn't really see it, and this, and terrifying people, and, hushing people. And I think you'd have a lot of really annoyed
I've,
folks out there.
yeah, I've talked to people firsthand who have had their house broken into by government agents
Oh,
and their
wow.
UFO material stolen. Their hypnosis tapes, their written accounts, their photographs stolen
Wow.
by humans. And some
Wow.
people will have an onboard experience, and it's all well and good. And then here come the military into their house and inject them with sodium pentothal and need to know everything that happened. And they're like, this is what a number of people have told me, that they fear
Just freaking
our own
ask. We're not the
government.
ones trying to keep it from you.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm sure you've heard of MILAB's military abductions. And
Yeah.
some people think, oh, aliens aren't abducting anyone at all. And any negative abduction is just the military trying to, pull a fast one. I
Do you
think
believe
that
that?
I think it does happen. I don't think this explains the phenomena, even
No.
close, not even close. No way.
Right.
Most
Right.
of this is ETs.
Do you
But
think it's another good reason to go public? Like if someone has an experience, is it in their best interest to go public with the information to avoid things like government breaking into your house and trying to get the information for themselves?
I think it can be. I'm not going
Yeah.
to say that's always a good thing because sometimes, if like look at just one controversial case would be the Stan Romanek case, who had an enormous amount of physical evidence in support of his case.
Mhm.
Photographs, multiple witnesses, landing traces, medical evidence. I mean, a lot of evidence for your
Yeah.
average case. And was arrested for pornography and says he was framed, smeared. And this is something I think it's a possible danger. And not,
Oh,
I'm not,
wow.
I'm not going to make a judgment on his case. I'm not equipped
Yeah.
to. But I
Yeah.
can tell you, I talked to him personally, and he seemed like a very honest, kind man. And I talked to his wife, and his whole family and friends are all standing by him. And I
Hmm.
wonder, yeah, it can be a danger if you go public. If you have
Wow.
really good evidence, those men in black will show up. I know another
Wow.
guy who got a metal bar from ETs, a metallic artifact. I don't know him,
Hmm.
but I love him. This
Right.
is actually Constance Clear, tech Midwest-based researcher. He was from Texas, and
Hmm.
he's on his way to meet her and show her this. And Men in Black accosted him and took the darn thing.
Wow.
So yeah,
So
this can be
why? Why
dangerous.
do they, like how much do you need to know? Like, it's, I think the public would be a lot more forthcoming if the government was more relaxed
Yeah,
and not so sneaky.
a lot of people are going public within government, and they're not being arrested or penalized or harassed, because
Hmm.
I think to do so would be to say be an admission on the government's part that this person is saying something we care
Hmm.
about, and that yeah, maybe UFOs are real, or else why are you attacking him?
Hmm.
So this allows a lot of people to sort of spill the beans, and that's what we're seeing.
Yes. Well, I know
So
here in Canada we had a higher up in our military who just came out
oh
and he did like a full disclosure, like just sat and an interview right on the air,
yep,
and out it came.
Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada.
There you
Yeah.
go, blurted it right out. you know.
Yeah,
So
and I
there.
loved what he had to say. And it's unfortunate he was a former defense minister, because if he was a sitting one, that would have been, game over.
Right, maybe, yeah. It's like, but it
So
needs to happen. I think more people need to disclose like that because I agree with you. I think if they continue to hide it, it does take away the credibility. People are just going to lose a lot of faith. You just look at what's going on in the world today, and you have a very divided world. People who wholeheartedly put all their trust into the government, and those who are like, who maybe should be fearing something that's out there, a virus, but they just distrust the government so much that they don't believe it,
yeah,
or
so lots of disinformation and
yeah.
misinformation and fear. I honestly think the divisions that we see portrayed in the media are over exaggerated, and that people
Yes.
all across the world pretty much want the same thing.
Hmm.
They want food, they want a house
Yeah.
over their head, they want stability, they want family.
Hmm. I think
You
they just
know,
want their lives back also.
yeah, yeah. And I think what's instead our governments or these naughty one percenters or whoever's doing this is
Hmm.
is trying to dumb the populace down, is
Yes, I
trying to
agree with
keep us in a fear-based condition. And
you.
it's not
Hmm.
going to work. You're out of your minds. Humanity is far too resilient. We are
Hmm.
evolving very quickly. We are. We've woken up to the fact that humans are equal. We all love each other. There's
Hmm.
no difference between us. Skin color doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Religion, political party, none of that really matters.
I
We are.
always say we're part of the human race. We're not any specific race. We're part of the human race. We're earthlings. We're Earth's populace, and we
Right.
all, yeah, that's how I see it as well. Do you think, when you look at everything that's going on, and you have ET who seems to have our best interests at heart, from everything that you're saying, it's just like it's really compelling. Why would they not just step in and just say, look, to these 1%? I mean, the money
Right.
eventually is going to mean absolutely nothing because they're going to just dive bomb the whole world, financially speaking.
I think they have respect for humanity. Honestly, I think they say, "Oh, you have to solve your own problems. We can't do it for you." It's kind of
Yes.
like, a little kid has to learn that fire is hot. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot teach them by telling them. If
Mm-hmm.
they were to come down and say, heal everybody, which they could,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a huge problem for us. What if we got hold of this technology to heal people? That could be very bad news. They would,
Well, there's a technology out there that can create viruses to kill people.
yes. So what we need to do instead is what they are basically doing, which is a very active sort of educational campaign. I think that's what they're trying to do. This is why they went to the government, and the government wouldn't do it. And so they're coming to the people in large numbers and taking them on board and saying, listen, you
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to go out of body. You have the ability to heal yourself and others. There is life after death. Humans have the ability to teleport, to levitate, to do telekinesis. This is something that happens on board UFOs. No kidding. This
Mm-hmm.
People as little kids are often given this sort of education of how to do telekinesis. I hear it, consistently. It's really
Yeah.
cool. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what they're trying to do is, they're not going to step in and take over, but they do intervene, as we have seen, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes on a large scale. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there is a massive effort right now to really not let us destroy ourselves again, because we've done this before, apparently.
Yeah, a few times, I'm sure. Yeah, we were slow learners, you know.
So
Yeah.
humanity is a special type of uh, organism. I think there are things that they like about us, which is our ability to feel and our
Mm-hmm.
ability to be very impulsive and to think
Mm-hmm.
outside of the box and to be independent and headstrong.
Mm-hmm.
But that causes a lot of problems with
Mm-hmm.
fear, aggression, and we're cut off from our own uh, identity as, uh, I would say, immortal beings as part of this universe. We're all part of
Mm-hmm.
this universe. It's not
That's
that
right.
hard to figure out that we
Mm-hmm.
are indestructible beings. Uh,
With that being said, do you think that they have ever taken people, and people just don't want to come back? Do you think they've been allowed to stay with ET or maybe relocated elsewhere? Are there any reports of that? Do you know of people just being taken and not being returned?
yes, yes,
Wow.
I sure do.
How
I've
do you
got
know if they don't come back?
uh,
Trick question.
I've got one case personally. I know of many where people have been taken and not returned. It happened to Felix Moncla, an Air Force pilot over Lake Superior. His Air Force watched it happen. They vectored his plane after a UFO and watched his plane merge with the UFO, and the UFO takes off. And Felix was never seen again. Young man.
Wow.
Another pilot, Frederick Valentic,
Hmm.
off the coast of Australia. Same thing. He's like, a UFO is over me. It's not a plane. It's not a plane. He's talking to the Air Force or the control tower when it
Right.
happened, and they never found him. And there are other cases. One case of my own was really kind of cool. These 5, 6 friends would often go up to the high desert in California and hang out at this cabin. One of their parents had it. They would just, drink beers and hang out for a weekend. It was a thing to
Yeah.
do. And one of them, Paul, disappears. He's out taking a walk. He's, I'm going to take a walk, and he doesn't come back. And they're like, oh my God, we're going to have to send out a search party. Where's Paul? Where's Paul? And he comes back. I'm like, thank God, where the heck were you? He's like, you guys are not going to believe it. I came upon a landed UFO right at the base of the cliffs there. And they're like, oh, shut up, shut up. He's like, no, for real, for real. And the guy I interviewed, Tony, was there. And
Right.
Tony knew Paul, and he's like, and Tony believed in UFOs, and he knew Paul wasn't. joking. You could tell.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happened? What happened? And Paul's like, oh, it's amazing. They were human looking mostly. They were bald, large eyes, but looked human.
Yeah.
And took me on board. It was very clean. Everything was white. They had white jumpsuits. They said they were studying this area, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if you want to come with us, you can. And he said, no, thanks.
I'm
Oh,
good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're going to be here next year on this day. So think about it in so many
Wow.
words, right? I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
So the humanoids then aren't considered grays. I mean, they're probably what, like your Palladian types, Nordics.
These looked, I think I would describe them as hybrids, honestly.
Oh, okay.
As you said, they were bald and
Okay.
didn't have like super large heads, but large dark eyes.
Okay.
I didn't interview Paul. I interviewed Tony. So
Yeah.
everything I know is through, secondhand. But at
Hmm.
any rate, a year rolls around and Paul starts giving away his stuff. And Tony's like, are you
Oh.
kidding? You're going out there? And Paul's like, yeah, I think I will. And Tony says, are you going? Are you going to go with them? Paul says, I don't know. I don't know. But I think I'll check it out.
Hmm.
And he drives out there alone and doesn't come back. And
Wow.
friends get together and Paul's parents are like, what's going on? And Paul's friends say, well, this is what happened.
This is a thing.
And so they all drive out there and find Paul's car. The keys are in there. They never found Paul. They called the police. The police are like, what happened? And Tony's like, well, this is all I can tell you.
Yeah.
So I
Was there
like to
something
think,
like what about him that would have made ET say, "Hey, come and join us"? Like, is there something specific about an individual to get that kind of an invitation? Let's face it, most of us just get thrown back.
um,
You're too much trouble. You're going back.
I don't know. It's curious.
Wow.
There are a number of
Yeah.
cases where people have this kind of conversation with ETs, and it's very friendly. And it's just like, hey, how you doing? I'm good. How are you?
Right.
And that seems to be what's happening in his case. And
Mm.
I know of other cases like that. Here in the U.S., we have a lot of terrifying abductions by grays, but in Europe
Yes.
and
Yes.
Russia and South America and Africa, yeah, there are grays, but there's a lot more human looking, actually, which I think,
So why do you think they're so volatile on this side of the world? you
like,
know,
I don't know.
the
I don't know.
individual maybe just being so feisty, fighting back, making it harder on themselves.
Well, us Americans, maybe it's that, maybe, but it could
Yeah.
be, according to some researchers,
Hmm.
uh, our militaries did have a meeting with Grays, and the Grays only agreed to give technology if we agreed to allow them to contact humans at large. And we said yes, as long as you don't announce your presence. And so the Grays said, okay. So this way they get to talk to us and say, here's how you can get off fossil fuels. Here's how you can heal yourself. Here's how you can, advance yourself spiritually.
Hmm.
In a sort of grassroots movement. And in fact, there's a number of people who've been told flat out, this is how to build a UFO, and are very interested in then trying to build a free energy motor. I did a whole study on this. This is a
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
I'm thinking it's a grassroots movement. Like, all right, you're not going to disclose government. We'll go to the people. We'll
Hmm.
get this done one way or another, but we're not going to let you destroy yourselves again. We're not going to
Hmm.
let you destroy this planet. It's not your planet.
That's right. Well,
This
yeah, I
is
mean,
not,
they take resources from here also.
they've been here longer, far
Yeah,
longer. We know
no,
this
for
because
sure.
of petroglyphs. We know it's because of hieroglyphs. We know this because of rock carvings, Middle
Oh,
Age paintings, Renaissance paintings, wood carvings. There's
yes,
no doubt that
the history is
they were
there
here
for sure.
first.
No, for sure. I know science will argue, but when you're looking at things like the Bermuda Triangle, which of course scientists have worked very thoroughly with coming up with all kinds of different reasons, logical reasons as to why disappearances happen, there are triangles like all over the world. You know, do you think do you think they're portals, power spots, or do you think this is ET saying, yes, we're snagging you? Because sometimes people disappear, the craft is still there.
Yeah.
Sometimes a plane disappears, never found again. Like people just sometimes it's just really strange how it happens, and you never find a trace of these things. more
Yeah, there's a
people.
lot of missing people on our planet.
Alaska, 16,000 people they figured disappeared in that triangle.
And I'm thinking some of these are people who fall off a cliff. Some are people who are
Yes,
murdered. Some might
that's
be
right.
eaten by reptilians. I don't know. But
Yeah,
some are being taken. I am
yes.
absolutely convinced. Lynette, one lady I interviewed, was told by the ETs a bunch of stuff. They said, "Oh, you need to stop putting out this negativity, this greed. It's going to destroy your planet. You need to stop eating meat. There's no need for you to eat meat. You need to, oh, yeah, we have been genetically manipulating you for centuries. Oh, animals too, specifically cats and dogs. We've boosted their emotional intelligence so that they can communicate better with you."
Yeah.
And they told her, what you thought were angels? Nope, that was us. And they told her, people start disappearing from this planet. Don't worry. This is because of us, and it's being done for the universal good. That's what they told her.
Wow.
Yeah, I still talk
So
to her regularly,
So while the
Lynette.
governments are thinking about population control, maybe, they should just be asking ET to take care of it instead of, killing everybody off, because that's a theory.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm in touch with at least 4 people who say directly, ETs will take us off this planet if it gets destroyed and repopulate us. This is a thing that I hear more often. Like, wow, it sounds kind of science fiction-y, very Star Trek.
it does.
But
Yeah, it
it's
does.
true. So if a UFO lands, if everything's going to hell and high water, and a
Yeah.
UFO lands and says, "You want to, I can take you to, New Earth." Well,
Yes.
I'm going. I am.
It'd be weird because, I would want my family with me. Like I'm funny like that, but
You are.
I am. I'm funny like that. I want my kids, and those I love. But that's always been sort of a boundary I put out. I've always put that out there to them. I'm like, I'm happy to cooperate. I'm happy to assist or, whatever it is you need me to do. But you need to like back off of those that I love because I don't want to hate you. I want to love you. I don't want to, try to kill you. I actually want to try to work with you. I'm a mom. That's just, I can be real nasty when it comes to the babies, which are all adults, by the way. They don't need my help at all. But the fact remains is that, um, that's just, it would have to be an all or nothing thing for me. I've had somebody who worked, I always say that this person isn't from here. Sometimes you just meet people and you just know they're not from here because of the type of planetary work they can do remotely. And he's very, very different. He can communicate with whales and things like that. It's just crazy, and I've worked with him for a while now, and more so in the last year and a half. But, before that, just, starting to, and he goes, he said, a ship will come one day, he goes, and there'll be, you should take it because it will be offered. And I'm like, nope. Because I really didn't know enough at that point. I was just sort of kind of, I guess, getting used to the whole idea because, again, for me, it would have to be an all or nothing. And he goes, well, of course you'd be able to go with your family. That's silly to think that you wouldn't. Just weird because, you're looking at somebody who's almost 70 years old. So he's not just weaving a tale. Like, he's just the things that he seems to know have always kind of let me go, they're out there and they're here and they are working in different ways for the good of the planet and for people, and disease. And they just seem to know that things are happening.
Right. Well, look how much humanity's evolved over the past 300, 400 years.
Yeah.
Seriously. We've, doubled our lifespan? How did that happen?
Yeah.
I think it's partly ETs because of some of these stories I'm hearing from people who are experiencers and enjoy extraordinary good health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hear that fairly often.
Yeah. I think if you could calm down the fear mongers, then you might have more people open to accepting that contact. You see a lot of people out there who do believe, yes, we're ready for disclosure. But then I think you have a lot of new age people who I don't know if they have a full understanding of that disclosure. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, because I'm not a new ager. I don't really study it a whole lot. I can just go by people I've had on the show, or people who have relayed certain information to me. They're expecting a certain species to return and govern again. Let's say like the Anunnaki. Oh no, they're going to be back, and they're going to be, things are going to go back the way they should be. And it's like, okay, I don't know enough about the Anunnaki to say one way or another if it's a thing or not, but, I think the most common would be the Greys. That seems to be the common denominator in a whole lot of sightings with people, more than anything.
50% in my own files, 60, 70, even some variation of what I would call Greys. I think there's probably lots of different kinds. And right after that would be human looking and praying mantis. Those are the three main categories, but I'm going to add a fourth, which is a catch-all of strange humanoids. And this is fascinating to me because humanoid is the form that everything seems to come in. I'm sure there are octopus-like ETs out there somewhere, but I am not getting those reports. They're almost always humanoid. And
which is weird, because you get people say, well, this is a Leviathan type, this is a Iguanian, or this is a obviously a Draconian. That's what I'm saying. There's this mentality of there's certain species that seem to be very prevalent within the space, and yet you're coming in with 300 people who are like, you really need to talk to Joe. Honestly, I have to connect you two, because they do get a lot of reports through ICAR of lots with reptilians, lots with like
they're still humanoid looking. They still have arms and legs.
It's
usually
true.
They're not walking around like lizards.
No, I don't know. Is it a perception maybe of how they're projecting something, how they project themselves to us, how we perceive them because of what they're allowing us to see? Could it be something along those lines?
I don't know, because we know that ETs do have what we would call the ability to do screen memory, certainly. And could be so far shape-shifting type of thing. And I'm thinking there are probably entities out there who can take on any form they want, and physically do it. I mean, leave the footprints in the whole deal, and wouldn't be ETs as we would think of them, but are some sort of interdimensional being that can, wear the mask they want to wear. And I know people who have contact and are like, no, I don't think this is ET at all. I really don't. This thing is an intelligence that is pretending to be extraterrestrial.
Right.
And this is probably the second most common theory to explain extraterrestrial contact.
Right.
Which is, no, these aren't ETs. This is, like Jacques Vallée and John Keel and Lauren Coleman and Jerome Clark. A lot of people have put this forth. In my book, Onboard UFO Encounters, there's one guy who absolutely believes that. But there's another guy who thinks they're demonic. Another guy is sure they're angelic. And the rest think they're extraterrestrial. And I'm not going to say none of them are wrong, or right.
Maybe they use the same portals, or I can tell you, I do a lot of, alleged, malevolent hauntings, alleged, demonic. And I say alleged fairly loosely because sometimes there are really malevolent spirits, or people are projecting, psychokinesis, or, there's all kinds of different explanations. But there was one case in specific I found really interesting, because I have had cases where there was like a demonic type of activity, and they've seen extraterrestrials like Greys on the premises, and one actually was super interesting because the family's son saw something outside that he ran from, which was really tall, no face, red eyes. And when he ran into the house, slammed the door, whatever it was big enough, it was stopped. It smacked the door, and it started sniffing the top of the door frame. It was something really outrageous. but found out that same week, within a day or two, if not the same night, a UFO was seen in the area, because at least 7 calls went into the police department about it. We're only talking a small town here. And a few days later, there were people renovating a barn, and they went off location because 2 grays came out of it. So you're dealing, right? Where's the ship? We've got where we parked. I don't know. It's a weird situation, but they were there. But it doesn't explain this big, tall, creepy, red-eyed, no-face thing in the
Yeah,
backyard.
I wonder about this because I have cases like this too. I got into ghosts. I've
Yeah,
researched all of this, Bigfoot,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
cryptozoology and human levitation and all this stuff. I looked into it,
Mm,
and did some ghost haunting research. There was these apartments down in Van Nuys, which were
yeah.
haunted. These young women had rented this apartment, and
Mm,
were having a horrific time with this ghost. It was terrible. It was
right.
throwing objects around. Objects were disappearing, and there were cold spots, weird smells,
Mm,
apparitions. They'd invite someone over, and that person would get the daylight scared out of them. And these apparitions started getting more and more bold, and actually came in and tried to possess them. And poor girl,
wow.
she says she was paralyzed. She could see who it was. It was this stringy-haired woman with kind of a sickly grin.
Sounds like a hag, sort
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
and we're like, "That's it. We're moving out. That's it."
Ain't that enough? Yeah.
And so they packed their boxes up, went over to Cafe 50s on Van Nuys Boulevard. We're having lunch. The table starts shaking, or dinner. Table starts shaking. They call over the waiter, like, "Our table's shaking." He's like, "You guys are crazy." And they're like, "We're leaving." And as they're leaving, the little gumball stand starts shaking by itself right next to them. And the clerk turns white as a ghost. And they're like, "Oh my God, it's followed us to the restaurant." So they move out the next day to a new apartment, and the activity stopped. There was a few things that happened, but it stopped. And it was 1 week after, I think that's what they said. And they're in there, and suddenly they hear this really loud buzzing noise, and they're like, "Oh no, it's starting again, something's happening." And it gets louder and louder, and like, "Oh my God, a plane's going to crash into our apartment." And they run out on the balcony, and it's not a plane. It's a giant UFO. It's V-shaped. It's covered with lights. It's showing itself off to them. This is the impression they got. And both of them had, they knew it was something to do with this haunting. It had to be, because it was occurred at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, this is kind of a theory,
Mm,
that someone who's having experiences is very psychic. They are a light and from the other side, as we would think of it, where ghosts roam, they
mm.
are visible. A medium draws spirits like moths to flame. We
Oh,
know
yes.
this. If you study mediumship,
Oh, yes.
they have ghosts around them, and
Hmm.
this is kind of, I think, what's happening here. A
Hmm.
person who's having contact is a portal. They are a human
You can
portal,
be.
and they
Yeah.
are, to a certain extent, drawing this activity in, because each, ETs perhaps can see them, shadow people. All of this stuff is a package deal. Sorry.
No, it's true. I always say you're like that little light in the dark, that little lighthouse.
Yeah, that's kind of my theory as to what's going on here. I've heard this from other researchers as well.
Hmm.
I didn't make this theory up. It's something.
Yes, no, it's true. It's true. I've been dealing 17 years doing this sort of thing. I completely agree with you. And I think even some of the activity you're describing is, people, I think you get so scared sometimes that you can project energy, like psychokinesis, like you can project energy. I think sometimes it's easier for a person to say, it's easier for them to accept, no, there's a demon in the house, than it is for them to accept we're powerful beings. We can project energy, like we can throw that energy, like the table moving, shaking. My daughter went through mega telekinesis when she went through puberty. She had things moving all over the house. I'm like, I would know if we were haunted. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and I say, stop it. And, when she settled herself down, all this activity just stopped. And
Yeah,
it's
there's a
like,
theory that a lot of that is just kind of uncontrolled mediumship.
yeah, oh, yes, for sure.
That it,
She's like, yeah,
yeah,
I
that
agree.
happened to Daniel Home. Or
Yeah,
he was probably America's best medium, and he had all kinds of things moving around him. Um, and that happened with a lot of people. It's definitely connected to our own organism. And
yeah.
people who are having contact, it's not unusual for them to fuzz up radios or go through an enormous number of light bulbs.
Oh, Amelia does. She goes to appliances. You'll see her. She'll be on the show the next time you come on. She's always like decimating small appliances.
Watch out, computers.
Oh
Computers
yes.
experiencers don't
Toaster
get along.
ovens, yeah, things like that. It's hilarious. She'll tell you about it. It's a riot, you know. But no, I could definitely see that. I can definitely see that. Again, we are energy one way or another, and we will be that beacon.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
No
it's
matter how hard you try to hide from them.
so I think this is one of the connections between UFOs and the paranormal and ghosts. Why are people
Mm,
having, a haunting in the middle of an abduction experience?
no.
Sometimes I think it's actually the Greys walking around invisible. I,
Yes.
I there's no doubt they can do that.
Oh yes.
There's no doubt UFOs can turn invisible. We have cases documented in the military
Hmm.
where UFOs have appeared over airports or Air Force bases, and they're not visible, but they're showing up on radar. They sure are.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that means, how many UFOs are right above us right now, and we're not seeing them because they can also make themselves radar invisible.
Hmm.
We've
Have
got proof of this.
Have you ever seen them in the clouds? I had,
Yeah.
right, where they're
Uh,
like they're just, you would think it's almost lightning, but it's not. It's just, I've seen them come over the river, and it's almost like they're just purging out, flashes of light, but it's very consistent, and you're just sort of like, and it's just floating along as one big crazy cloud full of like electricity, and it just seems to just be, you're like, oh, that's not a cloud, is it?
yeah, that was I call anomalous clouds. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a huge hotspot here off the Southern California coast with
Mm,
UFOs and USOs,
yes.
and a lot of anomalous clouds in that area where they sometimes come out or use them to play peekaboo. They'll pretend to be stars too.
Oh, great. Just when you think you got a handle on it,
Yeah,
you know.
one guy was being followed across the U.S. He pulls into a gas station, and the thing darts up and starts twinkling like a little star. He's pointing it out to the gas station attendant. That's a UFO, and the guy's looking at him like he's crazy. Sure enough, leaves, and this thing comes swooping down again. So, no, not a star. Got a
A
lot of
star,
cases
not a
like that,
cloud.
actually.
Oh my gosh. So really, a lot of it could come to just being aware, paying attention to your environment, your surroundings, as to, right, what, like I said, I never, how many clouds like that I've seen in my life and not even put two and two together. Then I moved down here and I'm like, you start realizing. I had a friend call me. She lived just across Lake Ontario, and she was big high rise, and she was looking towards Niagara. She says, gangway. She says, there's this crazy cloud coming your way. She goes, but out of the cloud, she could see part of a disc, and she said, it's coming your way, heading literally right for the point. I'm going, okay, whatever. It probably took about a half an hour. And sure enough, and went and I had a look and I waited and there it came. There
Wow.
it came. Just like,
Yeah.
you
They can
know,
they can cloak themselves, put a little kind of cloudy stuffed material around them. Sometimes they come in from, this is how they travel. They're not flying through space. They
right.
are popping in from another place, kind of, and coalescing, and they look like a cloud. And wait, that looks almost metal. Hey, it is metal. And they kind of
Yeah,
materialize. Uh, so I
right.
think that probably does happen. But yeah, I know a number of cases where people were sure it was a cloud, and then no, it's not a cloud at all.
No,
Yeah.
it's definitely been an eye opener. It makes me more aware of what's going on because I'm right smack in the middle of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, and Lake Erie is ridiculous with
Yeah,
activity.
I know about Lake Erie.
Right? Oh my gosh, the stories that come from people that are all along Lake Erie just blow my mind. Lots of all kinds of experiences, but ET experiences are pretty abundant, you know. I can't believe it's like already like quarter after. It's like-
Oh wow.
this was great. I had a lot of fun with you. This was a lot of fun. You're really knowledgeable and you're just a lot of fun to jam with. I don't like to have a kind of interview where I'm just like drilling you with stuff. I really like it to be sort of like we're just having, a Skype session, just, chatting and catching up. And you're very knowledgeable and you've actually made me feel better about, having these little dudes running around the house because they do. I often, hear them behind me and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, what do you want? Next thing you know, I'm on the computer going, tick, 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 just doing things. I'm like, why am I here? How to get here? So, just researching stuff and downloads and stuff like that, not really getting an understanding of it. I'm so versed in many things and paranormal and ancient history and things like that. UFO is very new for me
Oh really?
because
Wow.
oh yeah, no. I just no, that's not a thing. I'm just learning, and our listeners love it. So it's just again, it's just learning. But I'm learning from the same point that many people are, not from your position of being in, talking to so many people. I always say the same with Joe's position. Like I come at it from the person who just wants to also learn because I've had experiences and contact and things like that. So thank you. Now I don't feel so on edge, shall we say, just sitting there with a baseball bat saying, bring it. So,
Oh
you know,
good. Good.
yeah,
I'm glad.
yes,
Yeah, 'cause
yes.
I'm pretty hopeful. I'm generally an optimistic guy. But honestly, from an objective standpoint, I
Yes.
am very hopeful about how all of this will turn out for us.
Hmm.
My main worry is not the ETs, it's the humans who are corrupt and greedy. Those are the ones I worry about mostly, and I'm hoping we can overcome that and come together as a species.
Yes,
Uh,
I agree. I agree with you. You've probably got probably 70% of the planet at least, in your corner with the same idea. It has to come together. Something's got to give,
yeah.
you know.
And I think we will. I think we're up for some really good times. Yeah, we may have some rough times, but
Yeah.
um,
Let's hope 2021 is the year that things are going to start easing soon. So far, we've been off to a rocky start.
yeah,
Think the U.S. went a little crazy there yesterday, last night. I was kind of hoping now. It's like, okay, guys, let's settle down. The world needs to settle down. That would have been a good time for a big crash. I'm having an Independence Day moment from the movie. Right
right.
over top of of the state capitol. Okay, we're here. That's enough. I think intervention needs to happen because we need to like just shift our focus to something that's a little more hopeful.
Well,
A lot of people.
Betty Andreasen, a very well-known abductee from Massachusetts. Number of
Yes.
books written about her. Quasga, one of her main gray ET contacts, told her, and I'm quoting, "Love is the answer for humankind." That's a direct quote from an alien, a gray alien.
Wow. The ones that are supposed to be very unfeeling.
They're not
That's
unfeeling. Some are.
no, but I'm just saying a lot of
So-
people, that's is something that I've heard many times.
yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. But they're not all unfeeling. That would be a
right.
big mistake. Some are very loving. So a number of people told me they've never felt that kind of love before as they did from a gray alien.
Right. I like it. I do.
Yeah.
I feel more at ease. I really do. I'm looking forward. I know you're coming back. In fact, let me get this date right now because I know people are going to be asking me. And I believe we have you coming back on April 7th.
Yay.
Yes, you're back April 7th. So this is going to get to do this all over again. And I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really had a good time with you.
Oh, me too. Yeah, you were a delight. Yeah,
Thank you.
it was very
Thank
fun.
you. No, this is great. So thank you. And I will be in touch and we will get ready for that show and maybe see if we even want to do another one after that as we move forward. I really enjoyed your time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Preston. Have a
All right.
good one.
Bye.
I know. Well, we've come to another fantastic segment here in the Outer Realm. I really, really just enjoyed this interview so much. I mean, I enjoy all of our interviews. But every now and then you get one that just feels like it just flows. So thank you, Preston Dennett. And of course, thank you to Joe, who's I see in the chat room also. So thanks for that. Huge thank you to Folgers Coffee for partially sponsoring tonight's show. Remember to stop by the YouTube channel for United Public Radio. Subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on the show or you have a topic you'd like to see on the show, please contact me on either the Facebook page or the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Again, the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. So Wednesday night next week, Nathaniel Gillis comes back to the show. He's always really knowledgeable and also a lot of fun. And we have Marilyn Hughes joining us next Thursday night. So until then, have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget to tune in Saturday to the Gray Zone Uncensored with myself and Joe Montaldo, 5 to 7 Central, 6 to 8 Eastern. Thank you.
I don't think I've ever heard of that show before.
No, that's a shame. It's a good show.